So we're about 1 week away from entering into winter retreat. So the Chemrezi practice that I'll be doing has been on my mind, and particularly the 8 verses of mind training, which is part of the meditation text that we'll do. And especially after Venable's talk yesterday on the 8 verses, particularly that first verse is just so alive in my mind. So it says, with the thought of attaining awakening for the welfare of all beings who are more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel, I will constantly practice holding them dear. And so a few things have been sparking my investigation to this recently. One was that my birthday was last week, sometime recently on the 14th. So I was thinking about my mother and the kindness of my mother, because I was a C-section baby. I don't quite fully know all the details, but after a long period of my mom, who's tiny both ways, much tinier than me, natural birth wasn't working. Then they tried the forceps for a while, and then that wasn't working. And eventually, after a few other things, they had to do a C-section. And I've heard that a C-section is a significant impact on the body, or it was. It's like a car crash. It's not an easy thing to go through. So just thinking of my mother, who was very willing to go through that to save my life, but also the kindness of the doctors and the nurses and the other medical staff who were able to save my mom and my life by performing such a procedure. Because my mom was told that she could have no more children after that because it was too dangerous. And it's the kindness of those individuals in that very moment where they were able to perform that procedure, but also like the years of training that the doctors and the nurses and the other medical staff had to undertake to be able to have the skills to do that. And then there's the staff that clean the hospital, that have the administration for the hospital, those who sterilize the tools, who make the tools. It's just the contemplation is kind of endless when anything is pursued down and down, all that it takes for this one thing for me to be able to have life. And then also recently I got my green card after about a 2-year wait for them to process my form. And so I've been reflecting on the kindness of a long-term student of vulnerable children who has offered her legal advice to the Abbey for the various immigrants who come here and want to stay. And it's a multi-step process. I've had my first R1, my second R1, religious worker visa, and then my I-360, my I-480, and then my parole form that enabled me to go to Taiwan. I had to get paroled to leave the country because my green card form was in process. So all these forms that at each step, Pam very kindly consulted on, reading these forms and offering advice. And then the kindness of Venerable Sampton, who was the first person to go through this whole process and has been with I think 8 people have gone through or are going through this immigration process. And both Pam and Venerable Sampton have been with us the whole way. And also the kindness of the immigration officers. I think my paperwork is now stacking up about this high in the drawers, and that was usually we have to send it in duplicate, so that's it'd be this high that the immigration has. Someone has to read that, or either that or they flick through it. I'm not quite, but someone has to go through that. The kindness of those people that enable me to be able to be here and to live out my spiritual aspirations. And I remember in 2020, I think, we had an unexpected immigration officer arrive because he didn't know that they had to do a site inspection every 10 years. And so I think I was in the Kuan Yin room in the middle of an Exploring Monastic Life group discussion, and then I think Venerable Pende came up and said, Venerable Lamtil, an immigration officer is here for you. You have to come down now. I'm like, like, oh no, they're chucking me out. But it wasn't like that. But the kindness of this person to come here and do a second site inspection, and who very allayed I think the whiteness of my face when I went down there. He was very kind to allay my fears. But all these people who enable the Australian to be here and to live as I wish with my chosen community. And then a few nights ago, going into the Buddha hall and doing some chanting, the kindness of everyone involved in that building has also been on my mind. And as I was standing there looking at the woodwork, my dad's a woodworker, so I often, that's where my mind gets drawn, because I know, or at least somewhat know, the effort that goes into planning and making and polishing and fixing. There's so much work, from Tim Wilson, the architect, to the Abbey monastics who've been involved in this every step, and then the workers. Yeah, it's stunning. And also to see the crowning jewel of Selden's stained wood photograph of His Holiness right up the top of the room there. It was so nice to see. Yeah, so the kindness of everyone involved there, that not only am I able to be here with my chosen community, but to have an amazing place to practice and for more people to come to feel their aspirations as well. So in this way, it's like, wow, sentient beings, other living beings, really are as precious, more precious than a wish-fulfilling jewel. You know, due to the kindness of my mother and those doctors and everyone there, I have a precious human life. Due to the kindness of the immigration officers and Pam and Venerable Sampton, everyone here, I get to practice with my community. And then to the kindness of all the workers and everyone on the Buddha Hall team, we have this amazing space to not only ourselves benefit, but to invite many other people to come and participate as well. So then the second part is to constantly practice holding them dear, to recognize the kindness, and then very naturally the wish comes to repay it, both in very immediate ways, by saying yes when there is a request to help, to larger ways, to really wishing to help beings fulfill their own spiritual aspirations, whatever that may be, so they can really achieve the happiness they seek. So may we joyfully engage with these 8 verses of mind training this winter, every day, as Venerable Kungo was encouraging us this morning as we sit down to reflect and meditate, seeing the great benefit of doing so.